everyone. Welcome to the Awakened Mother Show. I'm Reverend Wendy Silvers, and it is my joy and honor to be here with you. As always, we present topics about spirituality, about the actual mother-child relationship, human potential, and we feature people that are willing to step outside of the status quo. So today, I'm really delighted to have Helene and her daughter Penelope here, and we are going to talk about motherhood, spirituality, taking care of yourself, what it's like to be the daughter of a conscious mom who is growing and evolving as she is growing and evolving. So pull up a chair, get out your journal, and have some good clean water nearby, and we're going to jump in. So welcome, Helene. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yes, it is an honor for me as well. And for you, Penelope.
Thank you.
So good to have you here. I had the joy and delight of having a conversation with them on their podcast, which is very exciting, about health and weight loss and taking care of yourself in a society that doesn't always encourage taking care of yourself, really. But we are all very excited because of what's happening in terms of Secretary Kennedy and leading the HHS, and all of the changes that have happened just in the past 100 days have been remarkable. And Helene has so much experience in terms of nutrition, weight loss, food, how what you eat affects your neurology. And Penelope has had the extraordinary accomplishment of releasing 190 pounds from her body. She was at one point, she was 320 pounds. So you are going to hear straight from these women what it is like to transform your life. So can you speak to me about what motherhood has meant to you and what it was like as you started to notice that there was something going on with Penelope that you felt needed to be addressed?
I had an incredible mother. So I was thrilled to get married and become a mother. It was one of my aspirations in life. Not, yes, to get married, but more so to be able to have children. And so to become a mother was just such an honor. I was so excited. And I loved being pregnant, and I loved the process of giving birth. And, you know, the next day after Penelope was born, I was like, let's do that again. That was so fun. Her dad was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. So I loved the process. And I also had, challenges like every child does. My mother was morbidly obese, and she died at 59, right? Just a few months after you were born. And so I understood that food could heal and food could harm. She loved food. And so I've developed, this expertise over the last 30 plus years in food as medicine. So strategically using food to help people. And I transform thousands of people's lives, reversing their chronic disease. So for my own daughter to become obese at that rate, I mean, of course, I saw her tendencies, and I really did everything I knew how to do to prepare her. When she would say, or when I'd say, like, what are we having for dinner? And she'd be like, oh, I want more pasta, I want more bread. And I'd be like, oh, well, how many servings of? And I tried educational models. I tried, getting her involved. I mean, I could see the tendencies. And I thought, well, we have it in our family. It's in our genetics. And I've always been a little bit overweight, but I feel like I've, for the most part, have handled it. But then for her to become 320 pounds, I felt like I was in denial. I felt blindsided. I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't know what to do, despite her psychotherapists and her medical doctors and her school and her choices. And I felt at a certain point completely out of control. And like every parent of an addict, I'm enabling it. And yet the boundaries that I'm putting into place aren't working. And there's a certain point where just I really didn't know what to do. And that is a scary place to be, because she was so depressed and so anxious and so obese that I honestly didn't know if she would make it. I mean, high school, just finishing high school, maybe like out of the question at a certain point. And let alone that, like her life. So it was just a terrifying experience.
Wow, that sounds really frightening. And I can imagine how, as a parent, you feel powerless because you're trying so many different things.
Yeah, they're like telling me not to talk about it
Right.
because you're the problem. And I don't disagree. Of course I'm the problem. I mean, we're going to get blamed for everything, and perhaps we should. And just because, I mean, it's her own journey, but for me to deny my participation in it would be to overlook something
Yes.
really important.
Yes. I think that's so very aware of you because as I was sharing with you many times when I work with parents, they put the focus on the child. And yes, there may be things that the child is going through and is needing to grow through, but it's a both people have a part in what's happening. So I'm really curious about what was going on for you as you were growing up. Do you remember? Do you remember your first experience when food? What comes to me is food became love.
Hmm. Interesting. Food became love. Well, in what way? You mean food became love, like I healed my relationship with it, or food became my source of happiness?
When you began using food.
I really was, I think I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We had just moved from Switzerland to America.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my friend's house. For the first time, I ate food that I'd never seen before or tasted before. And it was so different than I'd ever eaten before. And it was like this Costco size of goldfish box, and I could eat like half of it. And I just scarfed it down, and then I was just begging for it every day after that day. And I just remember always going to her house to get that junk food, and then it was at school that I'd get that junk food, the Oreos, the chips, the Doritos, the pizza, the burgers. And I would start like hiding it at a very young age, trying to trade my healthy food for the junk food with the kids at school, and they never wanted my food. And then I started stealing like little snacks I found in their backpack or that I found somewhere, or I'd scarf a few handfuls down behind my friend's back so she didn't see me eating as much. Like some very strange behaviors that are like an addict, but because I was addicted to these foods that were designed to make my body addicted to them as well.
Right, exactly. I wonder, I know I'm going to ask you this question because my daughter went to a very alternative school from the time she was 2 until she was 11. And so there was this concept that if you make something forbidden, the child wants it more.
Yeah.
Do you think that was there an element of that in there?
There was. I remember the first time I was at home, Mom said one treat a day. And then it went from one treat a day to one treat a week. And then it went from one treat a week to one treat every 2 weeks, and then every month. And I was like, "Oh, that's." And then I started wanting it more and more and more, and I'd go find my treats other places. So I do think there's something to that.
Yeah.
It's challenging, I mean, because you got to set the boundary when you see it's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And yet the deprivation causes more of it. It's really challenging. It's a really challenging position to be in.
Yeah, it is. I think that it truly is. And as we were talking earlier, because you have an organization, your company helps people lose weight and reorient themselves around healthy eating and healthy nutrition. But to go through that process where you see this in front of you and you're grappling with it as a child and you're grappling with it as a mom, when you were at school, did kids say anything to you? Did you start to feel that sense of being different?
There's two things at that. I felt different at lunchtime, but not because of food, because I was in special schools when I was young, and the kids were all being given medication for their ADHD and autism and these other learning differences. And I also had that, but I didn't have autism. But I learned differently, but I never was on medication for it.
Right.
And they tried to diagnose me with ADHD, but I never took medication for it, or we never really bought into that concept. And so I would see all these kids turn into different people.
Wow.
So at lunchtime, I'd be like, where did all my friends go? Because they were like morphed into like robots that were like had no childlike selves anymore. You know, they were like on these drugs, literally. The nurse handing them all out pills in little cups, like I was in a psych ward. Looking back, that's what it reminds me of.
Amazing.
And they were all eating ultra processed foods, but just never as much as me.
Right.
So it's like they were all packed it. I was never packed that for lunch, but I still would get it somehow, you know, from school or from a friend or stealing it, you know?
Yeah. Did you ever talk to your mom about what was going on for you?
Did I? I don't think I did.
No, but the school lunch lady would call and say, your daughter's eating an unusual amount of food, or the neighbor's mom would call and say, Penelope ate the whole pizza, and I said, well, you can just give her 2 pieces and just maybe just put the rest aside. And so, yeah, I heard about it from the adults in the equations. And then when we moved to California is really when everything just went, when she went into public school is really when everything exploded, imploded for us. And that's why we were speaking out so strongly in our advocacy work against ultra-processed foods in public schools, because it just has no upside to learning or anything.
And you guys were talking about this earlier. You guys were talking about how, like, your external view is like the processed food is bad. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes to all of that. What I've seen too is the kids in the bathroom. Like, I was in the bathroom floor eating junk food from the school cafeteria. And stealing like food or asking for second portions because it's so addictive. And I think what the parents don't see is their kids in the bathroom, because I wasn't the only fat kid in school. There were a few fat kids that were doing the same thing. They were eating their school lunch alone in the corner of the bathroom, hiding their feet so no one knew who it was, no one that saw your shoes. And that's a very real thing. And that's also really sad. And like you said, 70% of kids get their food at school. And so I had friends who were in poverty, and they would get their food at school, and they were obese and gaining weight, and that's all they could eat. And they were eating and hiding.
Well, it's 70% of the food eaten by children is ultra processed. I don't actually know what the statistic is of the children who get their food exclusively at schools. I forget that statistic, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Well, I love that Secretary Kennedy is changing the SNAP program.
Yeah, it's exciting to see these changes. I think there are more than 12 states that have passed the no candy or soda in SNAP, which is food stamps, for those of you who don't know. And then, eliminating ingredients, which are commonly found in ultra-processed foods, which I think it sounds like the food companies are going to play ball. So they don't really need this groundswell anymore, because it was going to be a headache for them to have like a different state for Michigan, different than California, which is, they can't make like 50 different varieties of
I think of Cisco. That isn't Cisco like one of the biggest distributors of food to schools? Maybe I'm.
I think so.
Lunchables. I mean, I think there's Johnson & Johnson, like Danone, like Nestle, like, when you see the map, I don't know if you've ever seen that map of all the companies that control the food industry. We have some major work to do in cleaning that up, and it's really, I think moms really do need to take ownership over developing their children's taste buds and things like that. Even though it got out of our hands, I think it's really important. Someone asked me once, like, what would you have done differently? And I probably wouldn't have sent her to school. And I don't know that I can recommend that for moms, or if that's even a good thing to recommend. But I explored homeschooling. And I felt it was impossible because I'm a single mom, and I just think it would be nice. It would have been better for you, I think.
I also think moms need to make like healthy food cool again. Like you can make a Lunchable at home, and you can make it fun for your kids. You can put it in a cool, plate and make it fun. Because part of like this whole junk food thing is like it's cool now. And so how do you make it at home with better ingredients? That's how I lost 160 pounds naturally. I just made my favorite junk food at home.
Yeah, and moms also shouldn't be necessarily serving it at birthday parties and after-school activities. I mean, it's just everywhere all the time. It's cheap, it's easy, it's fast, and that's unfortunate. And then they call people like moms like me like difficult or
True.
It's so funny because I shared with you earlier that when my daughter was born, I nursed my daughter till she was 3. But I didn't introduce regular food to her. I initially introduced vegetables and then fruits, because they said, you want to keep the sugar from the taste buds in the mouth as much as possible. And then my daughter had a friend, and at the first year birthday party, the mom, who later acknowledged having food addictions and food issues, had so much sugar that it was just like everywhere you turned, at every table and on the table, and it was just like this massive sugar drenching, you know. So
for every birthday party,
yes, but I was that mom. I did go through a phase where I would bring my daughter like her own dessert so that she would feel like she's having a dessert. But there was such, you know, there's that group thing of having that sugary with the icing and the dyes, which is why I'm so happy that we're taking, you know, petroleum dyes and all these things out of the food. But I was that mom who literally did that because I wanted, and she would be like, Mom, please. And I'd be like, no, just put it in, you know, because I really wanted her to be healthy.
I know. I still remember when you sent me to school with sunflower sprouts. And I tried to give them away. And they said, I don't want your grass, Penelope. And I was like, oh, okay. So I threw them away.
We try. I mean, as moms, we really try.
Yes, we do.
And, you know, there was a moment when Penelope, as hard as I tried to rip open her curtains and tell her to get out of her bed, and, you know, and did all the shameless bribes and, you know, whatever I could do to try to help you, you weren't receptive. And I think that there is something about the readiness to change. And
absolutely,
I was worried that maybe, you know, you wouldn't ever be ready as an addict, but you were at one point.
Yeah, I was.
Do you think that your mom could have done anything differently?
You know, I would say yes, but here's the thing. I think God designed it, right? So I'm like, it happened for a reason. But two, I know that body positivity was a really big role in why I thought I didn't have a problem. And my therapist. I was in group therapy, like single therapy alone, and then family therapy, and then I had counseling at school. And every single person in my circle, and even my doctors, would tell me that it was all right to be obese, that it was healthy, that it was beautiful, that it was fine. And then I had social media telling me it was okay, and my friends at school. So, and my teachers.
So I was the only one who was saying
you were
no.
the only one who was saying no, and I was influenced by body positivity on my phone because I was on that thing like 24/7. That was my other drug, was my phone. And I was addicted to the media validating how beautiful I was at 320 pounds and how I could eat junk food. And I would eat junk food alone in my room while watching the body positive videos and the fat people overeating junk food. I'd watch it and I would like indulge in it and be like, yeah, this is fine. And then I was so sick. I was then in the bathroom puking and throwing up and having to then refeed myself the junk food and hide it under my bed and put it in the treasure chest outside. And that's what body positivity doesn't show you. And that's what the 400-pound influencers wearing bikinis don't show you, how they can't walk up the steps, because I couldn't go up the steps anymore. I couldn't even get out of bed. I was so sick. But nobody saw it. Nobody acknowledged it except for my mom. So I just thought she was the bad person. And there was junk food at my therapy appointments. They would have snacks out and they'd be like, there's no bad food. All food's good food, Penelope. That's how you heal your relationship with food, is by acknowledging that all food is okay to eat. And so there's Oreos and cookies and chips in my group therapy session. And I'm the one overeating all of it and no one's saying anything. When I look back at that, I'm like angry at not angry, but I'm like, why weren't the therapists in the room like regulating that or taking it away or having vegetables there? Better to snack on vegetables than processed crap. I mean, we're children. And that's why I say it's child abuse to give children ultra processed foods, because you guys are making us addicted to foods that we're not supposed to eat. Nature didn't create Oreos. You know, Oreos don't grow out of the ground. It's not like Oreo flowers. It's not a thing.
Do you see how brilliant our young people are? This is why when we were talking on your podcast about parenting, it's like if you listen to the children, if you listen to what they have to say, they make sense. They're so intelligent. And what you're saying, you know, as you were talking, what I was feeling inside of me was this sense of betrayal you go somewhere where somebody is supposed to be, as I like to say, creating this container where you're supposed to thrive, and instead you're being encouraged to continue to indulge in this addictive process that takes you away from yourself.
Yeah, I didn't recognize myself anymore. That's actually why I had to lose the weight, because I didn't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. And I had to go to a different school where they had people who had ankle monitors on and who were suicidal. And then I got suicidal and I had panic attacks. I couldn't go to school. I missed 178 days of 8th grade. And I couldn't finish high school properly. I had to go to a different high school. I transferred 3 times to 3 different high schools just to then be homeschooled after. But the program I was in, I had to go up all these steps, and I literally couldn't make it up steps. I had to break every 2 steps. And there were like 500 steps to get to the top of the building. And I couldn't get up them. And then when I get up there, guess what food's up there? Top ramen. And what am I eating right when I get up to the very top floor? Top ramen. Like, that's the worst food with GMOs.
And monosodium glutamate.
MSG.
And we're in the healthiest place in the world. We're in Marin County in California.
Wow.
It's like one of the wealthiest places in the world. And you've got people doing cocaine in the bathrooms. You've got kids eating. You got fat kids, suicidal, and we're all eating junk food in a room, in a dark room. I mean, I feel betrayed. I'm like, no, like
That's
what? And then they're
amazing.
telling you, oh, you're beautiful, Penelope. There was nothing beautiful about feeling that way. Like, how dare anyone, any like PhD doctor, enable that?
Well, there's this body of research that behavioral therapists look at where, and you referenced it, like if you deprive somebody, then they want more. So it encourages binge purge eating behavior or any kind of behavior. So in that way, I mean, like
Right.
it could be deprivation of whatever the thing is they're attached to. But there's also this other body of research in nutritional psychology that shows that the brain it goes into addiction mode when you give it flour and sugar. And so you've got these 2 bodies of research, both validated, both peer-reviewed, both high-end. And so it seems like, the behavioral therapist, are really attached to this binge purge, like every food is good food ideology, where if you really just want to set yourself up for success, you just eliminate the flour and the sugar and you don't act like an addict anymore, and you're not in this constant battle with yourself. And you decided to look in the mirror and change it.
That's so courageous. I remember years ago going to Overeaters Anonymous
I
because
tried that.
my relationship to food was not healthy. And I remember the woman who was my sponsor. I called her up on the phone, and I had health, like I was in my 20s and I had health issues. And so I was telling her, I'm really hungry, and I'm thinking of having, this kind of bread or this kind. People didn't talk about gluten-free back then.
Right.
There was all the, but she said, pizza is the best food because you're getting the grain, you're getting the vegetable. And I was like, what's the vegetable? And she said tomatoes. I was like, okay. And you're getting cheese, which is protein. And I'm like, but I really want to eat healthy. Like, even back then, I was like, I really want to eat healthy. And I wanted to use this disclaimer because if you are somebody who is struggling with your relationship with food, I am not in any way judging you. I am not making you wrong. I am sharing what was my experience and what works for me. And there is help for you. Both Penelope and Helene can help you. I can help you, but they have a program. They have a company that helps people lose weight healthily. The new word, healthily. But so I remember saying to her that I really wanted to eat healthy food. And what she said to me was that was part of the addiction, that I wanted to eat healthy food. And I remember I felt like a dog, when they're trying to figure something out and they go like that. Because I was just like, I want to eat healthy, and that means this is the addiction part of me talking. I'm telling you, I don't think this food is good for you, and I don't want to eat it. And then I remember also several years ago going to something else. Somebody referred me to this group that they thought that I might be able to serve, help them, the people. And there is supposedly a new diagnosis for people that only want to eat healthy food.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's a name for it.
It's a thing, and I remember being there because I was listening to them talk. Because my impression, I don't like to do the good bad thing, because I know if you tell me you can't have that, like everything in my being is like, but I want that. That's really what I want. But I'm joking pretty much in certain ways. But so I remember being there and listening to them talk about food, and I was like, no. Can we talk about glyphosate and chlorpyrifos, and can we talk about GMOs, and can we talk about, if I bring that up to you, that means that I have this disease? I like health.
I like feeling good, and if I'm addicted to one thing, it's feeling good.
Yes.
I know exercise makes me feel good. Eating healthy food, now I know what healthy food is.
Yeah.
And you can go to extremes. I did this raw vegan diet for 7 years. That's extreme.
That's extreme.
And I don't think that's a safe. I really don't think it's good.
Yeah.
But now I know that.
You know what's so funny to me is that you hear all these things like, yeah, people who are healthy. I'm like, why are you labeling people as healthy? Like, that should just be our standard.
Right.
That should be the standard. In Europe, it's more the standard than it is here.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was really confused when I realized and I saw the research that sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
Heroin too.
And then I was like, wow, I didn't even know the heroin thing.
Yep.
And then I said, wow, why are establishments promoting, advertising, and feeding something that's more dangerous than cocaine to our children?
Yeah.
I was really concerned when I saw that. And then when I hear you say, oh, these people label you as healthy, I'm like, okay, maybe you guys are just trying to kill us if you want to give us drugs. Because here's the thing. Here's my argument.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to give heroin and cocaine to children, things that are worse than that, to children, but being healthy is okay, I think you're not on the right path there.
I think it's messaging, and let's face it, sugar tastes good, but when you change your taste buds, white sugar no longer tastes.
No, it burns.
Right.
It tastes horrible.
Right.
And I know immediately when I taste something, I'm like, oh, this is like and then I have to like return it, or it's really interesting. So you're right, it tastes good for most people, but when you're off it, you're off it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's wonderful to make choices that really support your immune system, that support your mental, because I know when I'm not eating well, I'm not thinking well.
That's true.
I don't, it's like it's like a short circuit somewhere. And it's probably because your microbiome is considered the first brain.
Exactly. Yeah, I just did a Spotify episode about this, the 3 brains. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. You're right. It's scientifically proven.
Yeah. And I'm at Helene and Penelope's home, and we just had this delicious strawberries and cherries and this delicious drink that you made. That is, can you say what's in there?
Yeah, this is pomegranate kefir soda. And so it's natural soda that's made with a bacteria, and the bacteria eats the sugar in the pomegranate juice. So it's an antioxidant boosting, a gut microbiome healing beverage that has natural carbonations. There's no artificial carbonation at all. And it's really refreshing and healing and delightful.
It's delicious.
So if you can strategically figure out how to like enjoy your life in a healthy way, we're here for that. And I think we're all here for that, because I think that we're born to be healthy and free. Yes. And I don't think that's an eating disorder. And though I may have given you an eating disorder, Penelope, for which I apologize.
You could say the schools did, but you didn't.
Well, I just think that our heredity doesn't determine it. Our genetics, right, don't determine it. I don't think that our environment needs to determine it either. I just think the future physician is us. Mm-hmm. And it's really up to us what we choose to buy, what we choose to eat, and how we choose to feel. And if you don't believe that's true, I know Reverend Wendy is here to talk to you about that. We're here to talk to you about that, and that's really when you can reclaim your health and your vitality.
I so agree with you, and I love that you're both doing that work. One thing I'm so curious, because in the hero's journey, there's always a turning point. When we descend, and then there's a turning point where we make a choice, and then we take actions that support that choice. Do you remember when you had like that moment of clarity where all of a sudden you were like, I'm done?
I think it was after one of my binges. I had been doing all the diets, the keto, the Weight Watchers, I did everything. I didn't do Ozempic, but I did something like it. It's like HCG injections back then.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I did everything. I did every single diet, and I kept getting the weight back. And there was one day where I would always have my cheat day on the weekend. And I remember eating so much food, I felt so sick. And I went to go do my normal vomit thing where I would puke and then I'd eat some more and then I'd puke again. And I said, I am so tired of feeling like this and looking like this, because the weight wasn't coming off when I did that. So I said, okay, I've got to cut sugar and flour forever, because I want to recognize myself again. And I couldn't recognize my little picture of my little self that you might have saw in the bathroom. I couldn't recognize her anymore. And I said, that's a problem. That was when I decided, okay, I don't want to feel this sick anymore. And then I just I started working out every day for an hour, inspired by you. You led by example. So thank you for that, because I resented her beauty for a long time. Seeing how beautiful and powerful, I just never thought I could be you. Like, I never thought I could even come close to that.
You're better than me.
Yeah, thank you. But I don't, whatever. I think you're better than me, but it's fine. She inspired me to actually move my body, which I didn't think I could even do. Like I told you earlier, I couldn't run the mile. Right. I never ran. Now I run 4 miles a day, but like that was not a thing for a long time. So she inspired me to just try new things. And I was scared. I was so scared. And I know if you're watching and if you're in that situation where you're like scared to try something new, because it's confronting. I had to confront, I feel like they were demons. And I didn't know God in the beginning of my journey. And I found God during my journey. And that saved me. I was saved by the grace of God. I was saved by what he created. He created this beautiful earth with these beautiful fruits and vegetables and whole foods I didn't know could save my life. And I didn't know that I didn't know I had control. And it was that spirit of gluttony that like got shoved out of me. But I had to work on it. I had to practice. I had to have faith and hope and courage and a why. That my why drove me every day. And it was because I wanted to have a family one day. I wanted to live a long life and live past my grandmother who passed away. I don't think any woman in our family has lived past, 45?
My grandmother did. But no, a lot of women in our family died at 59, ironically.
Interesting.
And I didn't want to be like that. I was like, no, I want to like inspire generations and have a family and like just pass down all these beautiful things. And that was what kept me going every day. But it wasn't like motivation or willpower or anything.
Right.
And I deleted social media.
Wow. So what did you do? Did you have any days where you were like, I just don't want to do this anymore? And
yeah,
what did you do?
I would punch the wall sometimes. I do remember punching I was so angry. I would blood, sweat, tears during my workouts sometimes because I was fat. I mean, I was really big and really unfit, and I would be outside in our basketball court pushing wheelbarrows across, listening to the horrible music at the time. Horrible, terrible. You'd never imagine. And I was always hiding. I never left the house. I hid in my potato sack clothes, but then they started to be loose. And then I started to recognize myself.
Wow.
It was a very long journey.
Yeah.
But now 160 pounds is off of me, and I look at her as like a human and like somebody who was like strangling me from like who I could really be. Because when she was gone, I unleashed all of these things, and I stopped being a victim. Because before I was a victim of everything.
Wow. Can you say more about that?
I thought that the weight was. I hated my father, for example, and I thought that he was the problem in my life and that he was the reason that I was the way I was, and he was the reason that everything, but he had nothing to do with it. He's my best friend now. He's like the best guy ever. He's like, everyone's got to be like him, I think, because he's so cool. But it's like, I thought he hated me. And I thought that everyone hated me, and I thought I had no friends. I was like, no, it's because of me. It's because of my mindset. I'm so negative. I was so unhappy, and that was a choice. I could choose to be happy or choose to be sad. I could choose to be a victim, or I could choose to not be a victim. I could choose to be a hero of the story. I could choose to overcome. It's not easy, but you grow, you learn, And part of life is failing, getting back up. But I thought you would just fail and you don't get back up, and you just keep failing, keep failing, keep failing. And then at one point, I thought I should just take my life. That's just the answer, because that's what other people were doing. Other people were self-harming, so that's what I should do, right? I was a follower. I was a consumer. And I said, no, I don't have to be a consumer. I don't have to be a follower. Not everyone in the world lives like this. Some people do, but that's their choice. But I don't have to choose that. And I lost friends. I lost family members. I lost favor over a lot of people. I lost jobs. I lost a lot of things, but that's okay. Because I've gained so much wisdom from that I could now share with young girls and help them overcome, because they can overcome.
So powerful.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Wow.
Wow. You poured yourself into her.
Did.
And you are
do.
magnificent.
My
You do.
hero. Seriously, my mom
Yeah.
is my hero. She saved my life. I say that. Every step of the way, she was there for me. She drove me hours everywhere I needed to go. My whole life. My dad lives in Europe, so she's been there for me since day one, ride or die. Seriously, like my best friend in the world. Like everyone loved me. You were always there. It's the best.
No,
Just the
thank you.
best mom ever. I could
Thank
never
you.
ask for a better mom. She's my best friend. And I don't care if that's unhealthy. She's my best friend.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I also challenge you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I challenge you too.
Right. Yeah, we challenge each other. I think it's really important to be honest with your
Yes.
children, even when you are faced with their arguments and their resistance and their anger and their frustration. And I think it's really important that as moms, we are bold enough, courageous enough to stand for what we know is true. And even when our children are, in denial or delusioned or, addicted to whatever it is they're addicted to.
Yeah.
It's really important. And it's hard. It's hard to stand against your child when they're strong and intelligent and independent and very well informed. But I think it's really important, and I think we can't cower, and it's exhausting. There were times where I didn't have the strength to fight against you. And I'm glad though that I stood for what I thought was true and real. And it was not easy. Being a mom is not easy.
Well, I'm really glad that you're both here. I'm really glad that you were driven, moved, really compelled, and that your mom has been such a pivotal presence in your life. I love that. And you have been such a wonderful mom. Growing, it's just like we were talking, as long as we are continually growing and doing our own inner work, can we really pour into our children and help them to be who they're here to be, rather than project onto them and shame them and make them wrong as we make ourselves wrong? Because we're always trying to be the best we can be. I'm curious, before we close, when did you decide to do a company together? What drove you to do that? What inspired you?
Well, I've been in this industry for a long time. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in nutrition. I've studied foodist medicine internationally. I have developed coach training programs, culinary medicine programs for institutes, organizations, universities. So I've just been like, this has been the air that I breathe for reversing chronic disease. And then Penelope said she didn't want to go to college. And I said, oh, what do you mean? Like, you have to go to college. Like, that's not really an option. She's like, well, news alert, I'm not going to college. And I was like, oh, well, when you're ready to go to college, yeah, we of course, again, I'm borrowing and not borrowing, but I'm like begging her and trying to like bribe her. But like her dad and I were like, no, you have to go to college. And she's like, I'm not going to college. So she said, but what I'd like to do, Mom, is I'd like to teach people the Step It Up method that I use to lose all this weight. And I thought, oh yeah, I do not want to be in the weight loss conversation. Like that is like not the conversation I want to be in. Like I'm in this other conversation about nourishment and embodiment and spirituality. And she's like, Mom, people need help. Like look around. Get out of your, delusional bubble. Because we have our little bubble here and that's fine. But she's right. She was definitely right. And so I looked at my life and I realized that this has been a theme my entire life from perhaps before I was even born, with my mother and her own weight issues and growing up in an eating disordered household where she was an Overeaters Anonymous. And so I just feel like I am prepared for this. and Penelope. And so we made a commitment to each other to do whatever we could to help as many people as we could. I couldn't help my mom.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd known then what I know now, I may have been able to. That's kind of selfish of me to say, maybe even prideful, but I agreed. And so here we are, a couple years into it, over 1,000 videos on the Step It Up podcast on YouTube and Instagram as well, Step It Ups with an S. And the Step It Up methodology, is thriving. And so we're really grateful to be able to help women to free themselves of the bondage of food addiction and disordered eating, and learn the valuable lifelong skills of cooking amazing, delicious, healthy food. I was on MasterChef, so I love food. Chances are, if you're overweight, you love food. So why not make it amazing, healthy, and delicious? And there's really the healing that's required from the inside out, because it's such a profound transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So so then we just created the method from what you did, swapping things out, starting with her Burger King order, going from a regular bun to Ezekiel bun to a lettuce bun, and then just slowly but surely stepping it up.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So simple, actually.
So beautiful.
Our bodies are designed to heal
Yes.
naturally.
And you're both radiating
Oh,
that
Thank you.
that health and the vitality and the vibrancy and the beauty of the divine from all your choices. So thank you for being such a powerful dynamic duo, and for bringing forth this information so that you can thrive. So whether you're a mother, you're not a mother, you're a teenager, a tweenager, a young adult, wherever you are, if you're a man, whatever you are, wherever you are in your stage of life, you can connect with Helene and Penelope. All of their contact information will be in the liner notes. And thank you so much for being here. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
for
It's such a
having me.
joy. Oh my gosh, I feel so privileged and honored to be able to have a dialogue with beautiful souls such as Helene and Penelope, and to bring information to you that will help you transform your life from the inside out so that you can shine and radiate the goodness that you are. So remember this. You are powerful beyond measure, loved beyond description, and a force for good in the world. So go forth and spread your magic. I look forward to being with you soon. Thank you for joining us. Bye for now.